Sea Heart, a short story by Jaden Blocker. I saw her for the first time as I stared out of the bus window, hoping the first day of my junior year of high school would bring something of interest to my dull life. I just didn't expect it to happen so soon, if even at all, but it brought me her. She had dark, wavy hair and wore a teal and green dress that flowed in the wind as my bus glided past. From that moment seeing her on the sidewalk, I could tell there was something special about that girl. Something mysterious, something unique, something I needed to find out for myself. All morning, I kept thinking about her. She seemed to be around my age, so there was a good chance she was a new student at our school. Hopefully. Every time I walked into a new class, I kept hoping I would find her sitting there, waiting. However, my hope nearly diminished when I entered my last class of the day, art, and made it to the table near the back of the room where 3 of my closest friends sat, without seeing her. "Hey, what's up, bro?" said Duffy, who was both my biggest cheerleader and my harshest critic. "What are you looking around for? Trying to find a hot girl to sit with instead of me again? You remember how that went last year in math. Don't you try that again." His tone shifted from playful to stern with a flip of his expression. No, I wasn't. I was just trying to, It's okay. Not all of us can be Mr. Nonchalant like Liam, am I right? He gestured over to Liam, who pretended not to hear us as he leaned back in his chair and ran his hand through his perfect hair, proving Duffy's point. "So, what's up with you, Owen?" I asked in an attempt to change the subject and shift the attention off me. Owen was the anchor of the group, so to speak. He was the grounded, chill guy who had more wisdom than any junior in high school should be allowed to have. "It's been a good day, Ronan. Some of my classes are a bit underwhelming. I was hoping for a bit more of a challenge this year, but maybe they'll pick up more as the semester goes on. I'm excited for this class, though. I have so many ideas for techniques and concepts I want to explore in my art, My brain pulled Owen's voice down to mute as I caught a blur of teal and green in my peripheral that reignited my hopes. There she was. I tried not to stare as I watched her make her way toward me and take a seat at the table beside mine. She was even more beautiful up close. Her sea green eyes were so big and vibrant upon her small, round face. I was jolted out of my daze by the bell. Glancing over to my right, I saw Duffy glaring at me with a look that told me everything he wanted to say. Sometimes I hated having him as a friend, but I could always count on him looking out for me when I needed it. It was a wonder how he learned to be so caring and protective when his parents never showed him that themselves, and it only got worse when they found out he was gay a few years before. After our teacher, Mr. McCarthy, made his introductions and gave his lesson for the day, he assigned us our first project. We were each to make a piece inspired by a mythological creature. He gave us the final few minutes of class to begin brainstorming ideas, so my table mates and I discussed our thoughts. "I already know I'm going to do the banshee," exclaimed Duffy. "Those things are sick." "Those things are terrifying," I muttered in retort. "Those things are actually quite interesting," added Owen. "However, I'm thinking about doing something based on the Loch Ness Monster. I think I could do something quite intriguing and meaningful with them. There's so much to uncover, and..." Duffy swiftly directed the attention to Liam before Owen got too deep in his philosophical nerd talk, and asked, "What are you thinking?" Maybe a phoenix. That'll get the job done, right?" "And you, Ro?" "Honestly, I'm not really too sure. I need to give it some more thought." My mind was too occupied with that girl to be thinking about mythological creatures. I looked over to my left for a moment to see her sitting there, listening to another girl share her ideas, and quickly returned my gaze to my own table. But then I heard another voice that sounded so serene I knew who it must have been coming from. I turned my attention back to her. I knew Duffy would notice, and how he would react. But at this point, I didn't care. "I'm going to do a selkie piece. I want to show the beauty and grace that come from their free-spirited nature. They can transform between seal and human by putting on and taking off their sealskins. But there is also a darkness that lies beneath the surface as people try to take advantage of them and steal their skins for themselves, trapping the selkie in human form and leaving them longing to return to the sea." She sat there silently for a few moments. Her eyes were wide open, but I could tell she was looking somewhere deep inside herself. "I want to bring a light to that darkness. I want to show that a selkie is worth more than her skin. I want to remind her where her heart belongs." "Sorry." She shook herself out of her head, wiped her eye with her wrist, and gestured to a guy who sat at the other end of the table. "So what do you want to do yours on?" Every word she spoke added fuel to the fire of my curiosity. The bell rang, and I bolted out of the class toward the bathroom. I needed to get away from my friends, for now, especially Duffy. I needed a couple minutes to collect my thoughts without them interjecting theirs. I couldn't wait too long, though, because I needed to catch the bus. So once I was pretty sure the coast was clear, I made my way out. I was about to step into the bus when I saw her again and stopped. She was alone, traveling down the sidewalk like I'd seen her that morning. My legs began leading me on after her before my mind could decide what to do. I'd spent the whole day dreaming of talking to her, and this was my chance. As I gradually closed the distance, I pondered over what I should say to her. I didn't want to come off the wrong way. I didn't want to seem creepy or rude. Creepy? I was worried about being creepy as I stalked this girl I've never actually met, walking alone down the street? How stupid. The doubts crept in and slowed my pace. I looked up to see her again. Even her walk enchanted me. All this beauty, right before me, and she could be mine if I just took the risk. Just as I'd made up my mind, she turned sharply out of my view through the wall of foliage that lined the path. I ran to catch up and pushed my way through the leaves, only to freeze as soon as I'd breached the barrier. There she was, sat upon a small rocky ledge that looked out toward the sea. Her arms were rested around her propped-up knees, and she was as entranced by the waves as I was of her. That should have been my first sign. A few minutes went on like this until she peacefully stood and kicked off her shoes. Then she leaned over to pull off her dress. I went full body numb, paralyzed, thoughtless. I knew I shouldn't be there. I needed to leave, but I couldn't. Once she was undressed, she made her way down the rocks toward the water. I stared as the tide gently wrapped itself around her form, a welcoming embrace that guided her under. Only when the last strands of her hair had sunken below did I manage to take control back over myself again. I needed to get out of there. Now! I burst through the bushes, only to be immediately thrown down to the concrete. Jeez, Ro! Ugh, I recognized that voice as the last one I wanted to be finding me then. What the hell are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be on the bus? Are you trying to get yourself killed? You've been all weird and crazy since that girl came into class. Is this about her? His angry criticism snapped to concern when he saw the scrapes on my arms. He threw down his bike and knelt down beside me. Are you okay, Ro? Here, let me help you up. I'll walk you home. Duffy was never the type to keep his thoughts to himself, but we walked in silence the whole way to my house, and that scared me even more. The next day in art, I sat as far away from my friends as I could. I still wasn't ready to face Duffy again, and I was sure he had told Owen and Liam about what happened the day before. I didn't hear a thing Mr. McCarthy said all class. I couldn't focus. I couldn't get the images of what I saw at the shore out of my mind. I couldn't stop wondering what exactly she had been doing out there. All night, I kept worrying that she might have drowned herself. Could someone that beautiful ever have a reason to end their own life? But she was there in class, sitting at the same table again. She wore a brown knitted plaid vest over a white t-shirt and black pants this time. Her hair was up in a messy bun with the perfect amount of loose strands twisting down around her face. However, I knew there was a lot more to her under the surface. I had so many questions, and I needed some answers. I just had to work up the courage to ask. When class was over, I let her go on ahead. There was no way I was going to approach her in front of my friends. I also hoped that they would just leave so I could go on avoiding them for now, but as I packed up my stuff, I noticed them coming toward me. You all right, Ronan? Asked Owen with a concerned expression. Why didn't you sit with us today? We missed you. I'm fine. I just needed some time to myself. I'll sit with you guys again tomorrow. I promise. You'd better, added Duffy. You're not getting away from us that easily. While I was a bit annoyed, I felt incredibly lucky to have friends who cared so much. Liam stayed silent, but I knew there was a side of him that truly cared too, beneath his macho bravado. I'm sorry for avoiding you guys today, but can I have just a little more time to myself? You guys go on ahead, and I'll see you tomorrow, okay? They nodded their acceptance and took their leave. Shortly after, I made my exit too. I couldn't let her get too far if I wanted to catch up with her. I strode as quickly as I could without drawing unwanted attention out the front of the school and started down the sidewalk. It didn't take long before I saw her, and I quickened my steps, trying to outpace the doubts that tried to creep into my mind. Once I was close, she noticed my presence and turned her head back to see me. I lifted my hand to say hello and tried to speak. Hey, could my house is this way too. Would you mind, if... I felt like I was going to pass out and thought I'd surely squandered any chance of accompanying her. But she smiled and said, Of course, you can walk with me. You're that guy from art, right? My name's Sielkhya. Murphy. Sielkhya Murphy. What's yours? Sielkhya Murphy. Of course, she would have a name as unique as herself. And she recognized me from class? I felt like I could throw up. My name's Ronan. Ronan Gallagher. Well, it's very nice to meet you, Ronan Gallagher. My legs got all tingly as she spoke my name, and I stumbled a moment until I caught my balance again. Is this what being in love feels like? Forget that. Get it together. Being in love doesn't matter if you make a fool of yourself to her. Yeah, it's nice to meet you too. I forced a shy smile to my face. So, you're new around here, right? Mm-hmm. Well, new to the school. I was homeschooled until now. My parents decided I should go to school this year. She tilted her head downward and began fidgeting with her fingers. You know, I... Never mind. She lifted her head back up, revived her smile, and asked, So, you been around here a while? Yeah, I sigh. I've been stuck in this boring city all my life. I can't wait to graduate and get out of here. Where will you go? I don't know. Anywhere but here. Yeah, I get it. I've always had dreams of living elsewhere, but more and more it feels like an impossibility. Where do you want to go? She stopped walking and looked me straight in the face. Her lips curled up into an even brighter smile, but her eyes darkened and pulled away like the tide, tempting me forward, but not quite letting me dive in. I got the feeling that I may never truly be able to reach the depths of her, but that wouldn't stop me from trying. Home. I want to go home. To the home I never had. We stood there silently for a few moments as her words slowly evaporated into the air between us. Then she spoke again. Do you ever spend time down by the sea? No, not really. I wouldn't admit it to her, but I had a fear of the water. Let's go then. Follow me. She turned and pushed through the bushes like she had the day before. Each branch made me jealous as they brushed against the skin of her arms in a way I wished I could. She led me to a rock ledge where we sat down together, feet dangling over the beach below. Again, I wouldn't admit it, but I had a fear of heights too. So, what did you decide to do for your art project? She asked with her head tilted toward me. I haven't decided yet. I like things that are real, things I can see. I'm not that into all this mythological stuff, to be honest. I don't know. I'll figure something out eventually. Don't take too long to decide. We've only got until the end of next week before it's due. She paused for a moment and then added, I'm doing mine on selkies. Oh, that's cool, I replied, pretending not to have already known. We had to read a bit about them in school a while back. You know about selkies? Her eyes widened with excitement for a moment and then settled down into a slight squint as she continued. Do you believe selkies could be real? I know you said you're not really into myths, but what if they're not a myth? What if they're real? What would you do if you ever met a real-life selkie? Of course they're not real. They're just a myth, that's all. But if they were, hypothetically, and I met one, well, aren't they supposed to be, irresistibly beautiful? So I guess I'd end up falling in love with her, but it could never work out because she would return to the sea one day, right? She looked down to the stones below our hanging feet with a frown and spoke with a low tone. Right. That should have been another sign. How could I have been so blind? We sat in awkward silence for a short while until she spoke up again. Hey Ronan, have you ever heard the story of the selkie who had her sealskin stolen? I don't know. I might have heard about that when I read about them, but I don't remember. Okay, could I tell you then? She asked. I nodded and she went on. This is a story my mom would always tell me. There once was a young selkie woman, let's call her Lyra, who lived in the sea with all her selkie friends and family. On a clear night in the late autumn, the selkies came up to the shore and shed their sealskins. The sky was filled with stars, and the light from the full moon shone warmly upon their skin, making them glow like angels in the sand. They all began to sing and dance, as they always loved to do. They were beautiful. They were free. They were exactly who they wanted to be. Then, a young fisherman, let's call him Kier, came walking along the cliffs that overlooked the beach. He noticed the selkies below and stopped to watch. Though he'd heard legends of the selkies, he never knew they were real before. He filled his eyes with their beauty, but the more his eyes feasted, the hungrier they got. He made his way quietly down the sand, then he crouched behind a large rock on the beach and watched them again. One selkie in particular soon caught his attention. That selkie happened to be Lyra. To him, she was the most magical thing he had ever seen. His eyes followed her body as she swayed like the wild waves. He found himself stepping out from his hiding spot and cautiously making his way to her. For an instant, her eyes met his. He froze, but she smiled, eyes closed to the sky, and reached out her hand to him. Together, they danced through the night. It was the best night of his life, and when he saw the first hints of light teasing the horizon, he wasn't ready for it to be over. He wasn't ready for Lyra to return to the sea. He told Lyra he needed to go for just a minute and would be right back. Then he went to the place where the selkies had left their sealskins, found Lyra's, and hid it inside a crevice in the cliffside. Shortly after he returned, many of the selkies began leaving to retrieve their skins and go back to the water. Lyra had enjoyed her night with Kier and stretched it out as long as she could, but as the last of the other selkies left, she told him she had to go too. They walked together to where the skins laid, but hers was nowhere to be seen. She began to panic, but Kier reassured her that she could stay with him for the day, and he would help her find it the next night. But after a great day with her, he still wasn't ready to give her skin back. Her skin was his possession now. Months went on, and Lyra was soon pregnant. She loved Kier and trusted him, but she still longed to return to her family and friends. The more she asked about her sealskin and talked about the sea, the more controlling and abusive Kier became. She grew increasingly sad and eventually gave up on finding her skin. When the baby was born, a bit of light returned to her world. Their daughter, let's call her, it doesn't matter what we call her. Their daughter grew up only hearing about the sea as a myth from her mother, in secret when Kier wasn't around. When the daughter was 12, Lyra fell very ill. For days, the daughter stayed at her mother's side as her condition steadily declined. Then one evening, Lyra told her daughter the story of the night she met Kier. Lyra had always tried to keep her sorrows hidden, so the daughter was shocked to learn the truth behind her parents' relationship. But most of all, she was surprised to learn that her mother was a selkie. Lyra then told her daughter that even though she would never be able to return to the sea herself, she wanted her daughter to find that hidden sealskin and use it to escape Kier and live the rest of her life as a selkie. The daughter burst into tears and refused. She cried out to her mom that she would find the sealskin and bring it back to save her mother's life. She ran out of the house and wandered until she found the sea. She stood mesmerized by its expansiveness for only a moment before returning to her mission. There would be plenty of time to enjoy the sea with her mother once she saved her life. All night she searched, but as the dawn approached, she knew she had to return, fearing what Kier would do if he found out she'd been gone. She snuck back into her mother's room and curled up beside her, only to find that Sielkhya burst into tears. Though her sentence was unfinished, I knew what followed. She leaned into me, and I held her there as she cried. As I sat there with my arms around her, I knew for certain now that I truly did love her, but it didn't feel how I expected. Eventually, when her emotions had calmed, I whispered a question to her. So, whatever happened to the daughter, if you don't mind me asking? I don't know how her story ends yet, she whispered back, a slight smile pushing at her tear-stained cheeks. But, supposedly, she spent years looking for that sealskin, so that one day she can make her mother's dying wish come true. That one day, the girl can return to the sea, where she belongs. I wanted to respond, but I didn't quite know what to say. Before I could find any words, she asked me a question. What would you do, hypothetically, if you ever met this girl? Well, I would do everything I could to help her find the skin and join the other selkies, and maybe if I was feeling especially brave, I might go and beat up Kier for doing all that to them. I'd show him what it means to suffer and avenge Lyra. That made her laugh. Then she stood up, on the edge of the ledge, and I looked up at her. She gave me the cutest crooked smile and offered her hand out to me. Come swim with me. I still wasn't going to admit my fear of the water. I'm going to stay right here for now. You go on ahead. Maybe in a little bit. Okay. Don't wait too long, though. She began undressing behind me as I stared down at my feet. You know, I'm really glad I met you, Ronan. You're a really special guy. I hope you know that. Then she darted off down the path toward the beach. While she dove into the water, I dove into my mind. Though I saw her story as, well, just that, a story, a myth. I knew that all stories and myths were created for a purpose. To share a message, to teach a lesson, to leave the audience with something to think about. I knew that for a fact, so I made sure to find the lesson in hers. I looked out where Sielkhya splashed among the waves, and I realized she was like a star in a way, a magnificent light that I could only ever admire from a distance. No matter how much I may want to reach up and pull her down to me, I can't, and I shouldn't. I can enjoy her company when the night comes, but when it's time for her to go, I just have to let her go. Maybe I'll see her again. Maybe I won't, but that's okay. I enjoyed the time I'd had with her. It's not meant to be forever, though. Maybe that was the lesson of her story. Maybe that was the lesson Kier needed to learn. When the sun began to rise, Kier should have let Lyra go. He should have thanked her for the fun night they had, and told her that he hopes he gets to see her again someday. I wasn't going to make the same mistakes as him. If Sielkhya wanted to go, I would let her go. Deep down, there was a small part of me that wanted to repeat the actions of Kier, but now I had a bigger part of me that could oppose that selfish side. Beauty is not meant to be contained. Rarity is not meant to be possessed. A woman is not meant to be owned. She is not meant to be controlled. She is meant to be free. She is meant to be herself. She is meant to be unbound, infinite, undefined. She is meant to be whatever she wants to be. A warmth crept into my heart and brought a smile to my face. Sielkhya was just where she belonged. She didn't belong to me, just like the selkie belongs to the sea. And that's where true beauty, true love, is found. Wherever it's allowed to just be.